Well, now we're going to talk about something else. Of course, you always have these guys running around out there and they're talking about all the basically preservatives and such they put in foods, which they should be talking about. A lot of the stuff isn't good for you. It's bad stuff. Just so they can get a little more product life out of something. Is that good or bad? Well, you tell me. You got to go into a country where they don't have refrigeration. Maybe they don't have electricity. Food would spoil pretty quick before you could get it out to anybody. People would be dying before they could get the food, or the food would be spoiled before they could get it. What's the trade-off? The other thing is that's a moral issue. The other thing is too is you have people years ago, and not that long ago, really. Even back into the a lot of farms back in the 40s and 50s didn't have electricity. I mean, they probably started finishing up electricity on farms probably late 50s, early 60s. There's a lot of farms that didn't have electricity. My great, well, not just my grandmother and stuff. She and her sisters and brothers and that. Hell, they had to haul water from a pump to the house. They didn't have electricity for a long time. That was back in the 30s, even into the early 40s. I don't think the farm got electricity till late 40s, early 50s. But when you milk cows back then, they had like it was a bath, a water bath. It usually was just a building made of concrete or block, had a roof on it, and you had water coming in on one side, running through into a big concrete bath. And this is well water. And the water would come running in, circulate around the milk cans to keep them cool so they wouldn't spoil. Then, when they got ready to take it to the local cheese, milk factory, whatever, they had to take them out of those baths, put them on a horse drawn wagon or in the back of a truck or whatever. And they had to stack them up there and drive them there, and then they went into the plant, all done by hand. And actually, today, what I'm getting at is today we have better. We're even better off because we have the electricity, we have the trucks, we have the technology to keep this stuff cool from the minute it starts hitting the, well, if you have pre-coolers and so on and so forth. It's you have to understand farming or milking, anyways. But the minute the stuff comes out of the cow, goes through the pipe, man, it hits coolers and refrigeration and tanks and all that stuff, and cools right down. Then they pump it out. It goes right into a truck. Same thing, cool. And as they drive around, it stays fine. They go to the factory, same thing, cool. They pasteurize it, blah 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 blah. So today, it's even easier than it was years ago. Same thing with eggs and all that stuff. I mean, people don't understand this. I should say a lot of people don't understand it. Some do. But when it comes down to it, our technology is a lot better. But the government still wants to come in and say, hey, listen, you can't drink raw milk. You can't. eat, raw eggs. You can't do this, you can't do that. All these rules and regulations on stuff. Again, when this has been done for thousands of years like this, they didn't have refrigeration. I mean, they kept things in root cellars that would help keep the temperature in the 50s and such. And they canned things. They salted things, to preserve them, dry them and stuff. This is how we dealt with things then. Now we really don't have to do that because of the technology. But they want to control every aspect of your life and tell you can't do, you can't do, you can't do. And that's where I look at it like God knows what He's doing. This is how people live for thousands of years. Yes, there's more people on the planet. Why? Well, we have a lot of antibiotics, a lot of hospital procedures, and things like that that keep people alive longer when probably a lot of them should have just died. But kept them around. And then they put preservatives in the foods that do cause cancers and, you know, make you sick. So people like to talk about these things, and rightly so. It's like when they make a hybrid. Years ago, they'd go out and they take the best of this wheat, corn, beans, whatever, and they implement it with a one that was had these characteristics and this had this characteristics. Like let's say drought, for instance, a drought resistant corn or beans or whatever. And these were a little bit different, and they incorporate it because this head filled out more than this. The stalks are longer on this. I mean, there's all kinds of things there, and they're just incorporating, making a hybrid. Then they get in there and they do the genetically modified stuff, which is on a different level than just making a hybrid. So people have to understand there's less farmers, but there's less farmers farming more acres. Practices have changed a lot. Fertilizers have changed a lot. Hybrids, genetically modified, a lot of stuff's changed. And what people need to understand is most of the corn and beans and the stuff you see out there is not made for human consumption. This goes into ethanol and goes into cushions and pharmaceuticals, you know, perfumes and all kinds of stuff. And they want to run around going, "Oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad," when you're not even eating the stuff. Animals are eating it though, because a lot of it does go to consume for animals. But you have to understand too. You have silage corn. You have ethanol corn. I mean, there's a lot of different corn varieties out there for specific things. People don't understand that. They think it's all the same, and it's not. So you eat the stuff, they spray things on it. It's just like alfalfa fields. If you didn't spray the alfalfa, you'd go out there to stems, aphids, and everything else. Would just, but yeah, Asian beetles, they would just eat all the leaf off the stem. Where's the quality of the nutrients there for the cow to produce milk or whatever? It's not there. So you need to spray it, just like corn. Because if you didn't spray the corn, the same thing, you'd have all kinds of bugs in it and eat the corn up in that, and it would could decimate your yield. Not maybe this year, but maybe a couple of years down the road. But you didn't kill these damn things off. You got to keep them in check and balance. Is there a residual effect to it? Well, it could be. Very well might be. But there's a lot of people to feed. Do we let people starve because of that? My point being is, this is where the government steps in, makes too damn many rules and regulations on all this stuff, but they'll allow you to put in this poison for preservatives and a whole bunch of other stuff, aspartame, the whole 9 yards. They'll let you put that stuff in food, but they won't let you choose your organic food, and you got to have all kinds of rules on that. Because what people don't understand, like even with organic food, is, well, people don't really want to understand what goes into their food, especially their grains and stuff. You think you think they just go through a field and they don't, no weeds end up in there, no weed seeds from weeds, bugs, all that kind of stuff ends up in the grain? It does. I know what's sitting in a bin somewhere and we're being transported, or whatever. There's rodents in there. They die. They get the carcass and stuff dies, gets ground up in the grain. The feces of it, when they urinate and go bathroom, and stuff on it, that gets ground up into the grain also. Yes, it's a small minute, but it does happen. But you're still alive, aren't you? A little is acceptable. As they're trying to get you now to eat more and more bugs. People, come on, man. You know, you can live off a lot of things. Human body is very resilient. It's a miracle. That's what it is. If you make things too sterile in the world, you'll die from just a common cold. But because your body builds immunities and stuff, it's just like when you're eating grains with other things in it ground up. Your bodies build immunities. There are some things your body doesn't build immunities for. It doesn't know what the hell to do with it, so it causes a cancer or tumors or whatever. That's why you should have a choice. And the government should just stay the hell out of it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any regulation, because there are some people that are just scrupulous. I mean, they just, they'll do anything for a buck, including some farmers. Not most, I don't know any farmers that pull crap like that. None. They're too busy working hard trying to get the stuff done than to be, oh, I'm going to shoot my cows up. I'm going to give them antibiotics. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Look, you give your kid antibiotics when he gets sick. Cow gets sick, you gotta give him some antibiotic, but you always let this stuff will wear off. You just can't shoot a cow with some antibiotics or hog or chicken or anything and send it to market. You can't do that. They test this stuff. Just like milk, they test the milk. They take a sample. So they know exactly who and where, if somebody takes a cow, they call it, like a hot, and they didn't milk you got 4 quarters on a cow. If you take one of the quarters that was treated, milk it off into the system, the antibiotic will be in the milk. Well, if they take that milk, put it in their truck, man, you're responsible for all that. You got to buy it. They hit you. Guys don't want to pay, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 for the whole truck. And this is what I'm getting at. They don't do this stuff, and if it does happen, it was an accident, is what had happened. And they're like, man, but it still comes back to bite them. There's also ways around that too. I'll tell you one way they get around it. They'll take that truck that's hot, and they'll mix a little in with this load. They'll mix a little in with this load. In other words, they dilute it down enough to where it doesn't show up. That's right. They'll dilute it down enough to where it doesn't show up in the mix. If it's super hot, they'll just dump it. But if it's not real bad, it's kind of like right there. It's like they'll just mix it. I'm not saying they all do that. Some probably might stick strictly by the book and nope, gone. Send it back, bill that guy because they know who had the hot mix. So the food you're eating, coming from the farmer, best in the world. After it goes to the processors and the end manufacturer, that's where your problems lie. With their preservatives and their additives, it's like, why do you have to add this and this and this and this to this? Why? Why do you have to add all that? Most people, you could grow a garden and some planters. A lot of people don't eat, 10 tomatoes a day or a week even for that matter. And you get a couple of tomato plants, they can produce. Radishes, lettuce, same thing. I mean, if you're waiting for a head of lettuce, that's one thing. If you just take the leaves and stuff, that stuff, cut it back, it comes back. Cut it back, comes back. You can do that on your patio, in flower pots and whatever. What gets me though is some of these places and cities will say, "Oh, you can't do that in your front lawn." Well, that's all I got is a front lawn. Can't do that. Well, you take your flower beds out and you plant that. I can't do that either. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? See, this thing, I go back to the people need to just, oh, we're going to fine you $1,000 a day. You find a jury that'll sit there and say, I can't grow a garden and you're going to fine me $1,000 a day. Oh, but the law, we don't care about your law. Your law is screwed. You're screwed. Because next time we come around, we're going to vote every single one of you out and we should charge you with some crime because you did something here that's not on the up and up. I mean, they should have something. They should make laws against God. God laws against nature. And but because you're harming the people. You're harming God. You're playing God. You can't do that. Hopefully you kind of understand what I'm saying, where I'm coming from on this stuff. I mean, you could explain this and explain it and explain it and really get in depth on it. There's no reason to. You understand. And like I said before, they're going to protect you from the evil farmer, but who's going to protect you from them? When they're adding all this stuff in, and that's not the farmer, it's the end producer. Farmer didn't put any preservatives in it. Farmer didn't put aspartame in it. Didn't put vitamin fortified with this fortified. He didn't do that. He didn't put this synthetic crap in there. He didn't do that. This is why every country needs to produce their own in regions so it can get to the people faster so they can eat fresher fruits, vegetables, food in general. You don't have to put the preservatives in it. And you can't do that. Why? Because, well, the big guys that own Cargill and the rest of them, Smithville, I mean, the list just goes on and on. They don't want that. They want to be able to control it. Well, if you do it regionally in small areas and have like set up to like, well, let's say Dallas, New York, L.A., Chicago, whatever. Let's say that it takes 5 or 6 plants right around there to keep these people fed. They don't want to do that. That costs money. They'd rather have one plant and ship it. They can control it better. It doesn't cost them as much. Anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Beating a dead horse into glue. Y'all take care.